welcome, Ralph.
Thank you, David.
I've known Ralph for many years. He was one of our very, very first jazz majors when Charlie Haden and I started the jazz program in the early 80s. And Ralph is this year's Charlie Haden CalArts Artist in Residence. We try to do this every year for a week to keep Charlie's spirit and music alive in our program. And Ralph worked really closely with Charlie for the time that he was here at CalArts and after that. You know, so Ralph has some really interesting perspectives on his experience with Charlie. We call this week the spirituality of improvisation, because that was Charlie's course title. Right? He would be here every Tuesday, and you never knew where that class was going to go, but that was Charlie's teaching style. So Ralph is a wonderful trumpet player who did both his BFA and MFA here. His MFA was actually in playing bass. He didn't not play trumpet, but he played bass too. And at this point, he's very successful recording artist, performer, composer, and serious educator. We'll talk about that. But Ralph records on the ECM label, which is one of the most significant improvised music labels in the world. And it's really an honor to have Ralph here this week. So thank you, Ralph.
Thank you, David.
I wanted to just start by, maybe you could talk a little bit about what brought you to CalArts and why you ended up here.
So after my second year of college at the University of Texas at Austin, I started to see someone who I went to high school with, and I decided that given that she was going to UCLA, I wanted to find a third college in my third year after high school in Los Angeles. And my father basically took care of everything in my life, and I trusted him. And my father was a great trumpet player and knew all the trumpet teachers all throughout the country, basically. And I said, do you know of any schools in Los Angeles or any trumpet teachers that you would recommend? He says, yes, there's a friend of mine, old friend of mine named Mario Guarneri, who used to play second trumpet in the LA Philharmonic, who was teaching at CalArts. So my dad said, I think you should go to CalArts. And I said, okay, that sounds good. Is it in Los Angeles? He said, yes. Okay, I'm in. So that's what brought me to CalArts. I had no knowledge of what was going on here.
It was right at the beginning, so there wasn't.
Yeah. And I was a classical major, so my focus was I was going to study with Mario. And so I ended up here, and then I was here for a year, and then I went back to the Bay Area. For some reason, the idea of me being in college wasn't really working. I was here for a year. I had a good experience here, but something wasn't quite right for me. I went back to the Bay Area, moved in with my parents, played a bunch of gigs. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to come back to LA. I'm going to be a studio musician. And then I came here, and I'm kind of reconnected with everybody. And there was a really different feeling in the program. And this was, I guess, I was there the first year of the program. And it just in that 1 year that separated, there was just a different feeling. There were new students there. You told me I could come back and just audit and play trumpet. You needed a trumpet player. And so that's what brought me back into the mix here. And then for me, the clouds parted and my life fundamentally changed from that point forward. And, I did 2 degrees. I would have stayed for another degree if there were more degrees. and that was just a life-changing moment for me.
So how was Charlie part of that? I mean, how did that affect you?
That was, that first year at CalArts, I started to play in his ensemble, and that was just a very, very new experience and kind of uncomfortable experience because, in Charlie's ensemble, we were playing Ornette tunes and regularly improvising on things without chord changes. And I wanted to get it. I wanted to understand that way of making music. And Charlie's role in that was basically his energy and his playing, his sound. But it was so foreign to me, that world. I was a jazz player. I was fairly comfortable playing on chord changes and things like that. But so that was kind of the beginning of that process to work with Charlie. I mean, at first I was very, very intimidated by him, and over the years got more comfortable and started to understand more of what he was talking about, where he was guiding us towards. And that took a while. And even, getting through that experience at CalArts, I mean, those lessons that he was trying to teach us continued throughout my life. A lot of moments where I thought back and things that he would say to us and that resonated then, but really resonated to a point of understanding later.
That totally makes sense. I remember way back at the beginning when we used to play Ornette tunes, and everybody kind of imagined that, okay, this is Ornette, it's free, or, which is a silly use of that word.
I would agree.
But Charlie would stop everybody and he would say, no, man, that's wrong, man. And what he was talking about was the phrasing, the pacing, the expressive details. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like, okay, do anything you want to. That was the furthest from the truth.
Right.
Right. So, so I don't know. Do you have a memory or a story from those days that we might not know? Just kind of a CalArts memory?
Well, there's so many, right?
Yeah.
One of my favorites was us going to the Notre Dame Jazz Festival, and Charlie...
In 1986.
Charlie unbelievably went with us, and Ruth. Charlie and Ruth came with us. And he was like our father or something, but the coolest father ever, like the fact that he not only came on the trip, but did it with enthusiasm, and
it was his idea.
It was his idea, exactly, So, and then that whole process to get to that point, because that was a group that really was growing, and it was such an intimate program at the time, so we were all best of friends and playing together, and just had so much respect for each other. But then to have Charlie with us on that trip, unforgettable kind of experience.
Yeah, no, I have vivid memories of that trip. Charlie, it was his idea. He had been an adjudicator at the Notre Dame Festival the year before, which is kind of an unlikely selection for them, because it's at that point, it was a very conservative, really mainstream, traditional jazz kind of a situation with mostly big bands, college big bands. And our thing really was very out of their norm. And Charlie said, man, let's go to Notre Dame, man. And I said, what? and he hooked it up to get an invitation. And then I did all of the travel and all that stuff. We flew into Chicago and rented cars and drove to South Bend, Indiana. And we played a set that included original compositions by several people in the band, you, David Ake, Mark Miller, Jeanette Raitt, Nedra Wheeler, Scott Colley, It was a great band. And we basically took the whole program
Right.
to Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And it really blew them away. And one of the things that we did in that set was Charlie had come back from making the Ornette Coleman record, Ornette Coleman and Pat Metheny, Song X, which was a really important record. And he handed out lead sheets that Metheny did, and the band knew that whole album's worth of music 3 or 4 months before it was released. And we played 1 or 2 of the tunes from, do you remember which tunes we played?
Maybe Word from Bird, and maybe Endangered Species or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Endangered Species is, I hesitate to even describe it, but it's super high energy for a long time. And I think it really blew everybody at Notre Dame away, you know, in a way that they really were shocked at. That was a great trip.
Yeah, you know, one thing, if I think back on that, and Charlie's spirit on that trip, and the fact that he wanted to be there, and you know, he was hanging with us too.
Right.
I mean, we were going to restaurants, having meals, and that it was so fun, and that's definitely guided me in this music, and that's why I've signed up for this music as opposed to being a classical player, which I was, because it's, you know, we don't get rich doing this, but you should have an enjoyable, fun experience making music, and whether it's the playing or it's the hanging, it's all kind of one thing, and I think Charlie was sort of part of that, you know, kind of going from the years and years of thinking like, oh God, we have to play, oh God, tense up, you know. And he kind of had this very stable kind of feeling of just, hey, you know, we're alive here, we're hanging out, we're blessed to just be with each other, whether we're hanging out or playing music, and it was just this one experience. So that's definitely guided me, and something as a teacher, I like to just, you know, calm people down, like, oh no, we're just playing music here. Let's enjoy this, you know. Let's really try to, like, you know, move in the direction that it really is truly a fun experience playing music.
Well, that's really important. Ralph, you've been a really established educator for a long time. I was just remembering this morning when Bobby Brennan came here. Bobby's a wonderful bass player from New York. And Bobby studied with you at Five Towns. That just flashed to me this morning. I hadn't thought about that in a long time. Bobby now is a bass playing clown in Cirque du Soleil. He's really, you know, there's a occupation you don't hear described very
Definitely
often.
Not. Yes.
But it fits.
But
it
the
fits
perfect
Bobby.
person for the job.
That's
you know?
absolutely
in
right.
In the best possible way. Yes.
Yeah. But, you know, after Five Towns, you taught at Eastman, you taught at NEC, various schools in New York, University of Nevada, Reno, for a couple of years in Switzerland, and you started the School for Improvised Music, SIM, 25 years ago, which was a really important and significant effort. Can you talk a little bit about your kind of teaching style, your teaching philosophy? I mean, you talked about Charlie in that context. What's most important to you as a teacher?
Trying to simplify things. And getting back to Charlie, really, I mean, I'm heavily influenced actually by the way Charlie taught in that class, which was there was no discussion of any sort of nuts and bolts information, any theory, any of that type of stuff. It's really just boiled down to, let's, again, like a celebration, like he would bring music in and play for us and play it for us with enthusiasm. And so my education, the big part of my education has always been listening to music, really. I was just, you know, being out here in California again, so I was born and raised in the Bay Area, and, I'm driving again out here and I'm listening to music. And that was a big part of my education. And so that class was Charlie playing music for us, and then us playing and then talking. And that is, in many ways, the crux of my teaching. That's what I love to do. I like to deflect things and move things away from being overly analytical about the music. I think there's a time and place for that. But that's really, I just like to simplify it. So the sim idea was basically, okay, let's have a room and let's have people come together in that room, and it'll all take care of itself. There'll be plenty of things to discuss as long as we, again, boil it down to playing, listening to music, and talking. And, so sim was really born largely from my experiences at CalArts. Also my experience teaching at Eastman School of Music, because sim started after my experience there. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to just take the best of that and just reduce it down to this kind of simple idea of let's get some teachers together, people that really want to be there, teachers that love to teach. And most of those, if not all those teachers back in those days, didn't teach at schools.
Right.
I just knew that, they know how to talk. They know how to talk about music, and they love music. That's basically the qualifications, Mm-hmm. And so that was it. 2001, January 2001. I'll never forget. It was a very cold day, and I got off the train, and I'm in Lower Manhattan. I see a line of about 30 people waiting to get into the knitting factory. That's where the first sim happened, and. We haven't looked back since, and we're still amazingly still doing it.
I remember one year when we were at IAJE, the Jazz Educators Convention, and it was in New York, and I got to go to one of your really early sim class days while we were in New York for IAJE, and I was totally blown away by the fact that you organized and led it, because that's the hard part. I mean, once you're in the room dealing with music, I expected that would be great, but just to have, to start an organization like that, that's not easy. It's really challenging.
I had a lot of help. Yeah, just, so, originally, there were a lot of discussions actually with Steve Coleman.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about, because I had this idea and then we talked about it. He was going to be part of it from the beginning, but later became a teacher. But Peter Epstein, also.
Another CalArts alum.
Yes, also a big part of sim. Mm-hmm. And so we've been able to manage it. And it's the initial idea was for it to grow into it. We wanted it to be bigger. But then there were moments where we're not able really to do that. So we've kept it simple, and we've done the workshop once or twice a year, and we have taken it on the road. We've done versions of it in Europe, and but. Hopefully we can keep it going. We have a couple of events scheduled this year, and I hope we can keep it going forever.
I hope so too. We've had many CalArts students do, especially the summer versions of sim over the years, and they always come back and say that changed everything. That changed my life.
Well, and the thing, and you know this as well as I do. I mean that. The teachers get just as much out of the experience.
Totally.
It's just powerful bringing people together in a creative environment. It's life-changing for everyone.
So when you were at CalArts, did you do any collaborative projects with people in the other schools, like composing for film or composing for dance or collaborating across the schools?
the concert that we did with the dance department, playing Mingus's music. I might be forgetting some things, but that one stands out in my mind. So that was when James Newton was teaching here.
Right.
That was a really great experience.
It totally was.
Just
it's called Mingus Moves.
Mingus Moves, yeah. And, James was also a very important part of my CalArts experience as well, and similar to Charlie, a real passion for music, a real love. And I learned a lot, working with James. And so that was probably his idea. I don't know. I don't remember how that came to be, but just to work with dancers and play that amazing music. And James introduced us to a lot of music that we weren't privy to. Mingus's music and the early Ellington music, also life-changing, music that none of us really knew anything about, and he felt it was really important for us to be exposed to that.
So one other question I had for you, you were included in the group that recorded at Capitol Records on the very first CD that Joe Smith, who was on the board of trustees and was the president and CEO of Capitol, invited us to come in. I had been proposing it since the very beginning. And it was once Stephen Levine became president, he was really receptive to that idea. And Joe was coming on the board of trustees at that point, and he said, sure, that's a great idea. And he set up everything. We're still doing it. We're about to go into the studio for the 34th year, and it's a miracle that we did it even once, but it's so far beyond miraculous that we're still doing it. Can you talk about that experience? I mean, on that first year, you played on almost every track on the record. It was several different bands, but you were in all of them. And you had one tune as a composer, which I went back and listened to last night, and it's glorious. It's so beautiful, the composition and the orchestration, and it was just a joy to go back and listen to it again. Oh. But can you kind of talk about that experience and maybe how it affected your studio projects afterward, because you're very active in the studio? So
yeah, that was, I mean, what a magical experience that was, from the trying to compose a piece and then rehearsing and and again, like, I was so lucky because that program was so intimate back in those days. It was probably smaller than it is now. I don't know, but and the musicians were so good. They were so good, and everybody composed beautiful music. And I mean, what a gift, to at age. I'm trying to think how old I was around. I was around 25, 26, and to do that at Capitol Records and do that with your friends, and for me to compose a piece and have it recorded well and played well, it just was. I've learned so much, and in terms of what I learned, I mean, I guess that was the beginning of my experience, having my music played in the studio, and I was definitely didn't know anything about that, so I always think, I teach in a lot of different schools, and it's amazing how rare this is for a program to do something like that. Not only to do it on any level, but to do it to that extent, and it should just be a no-brainer for every jazz program, to at the end of the year. I think, programs do this, but it seems like it doesn't really happen anymore for various reasons. But I can't think of a better activity to really have a life-changing experience as a creative musician, to make music with your peers and really put some time and energy into it, and end the year with that finished product, which was the CD, but the packaging of the CD, the whole thing, just So
yeah, the packaging is a collaboration with the graphic design program, and we're still. I just emailed the designer for this year this morning, because we're, but at that point, I remember the very first CD. Joe Smith told us. He gave us limitations, but not many. It was like 3 days in the studio and 2 days of mixing and a day of mastering. But he didn't really put any limits on the number of tracks. That first year, we really pushed it.
Right.
And he didn't put any limits as far as the packaging and the design. And the designer that year did like really expensive custom colors on the CD booklet. And it was a big booklet with all sorts of information. It was great.
Right. Yeah. And it was great that you made an additional cassette tape of music that didn't get on the CD, and that music was great. That music was great too. I mean, the level was so high on that. I mean, that I can go back and listen to that CD, and it outside of a few little moments, it doesn't sound like a student CD at all.
Definitely not.
So I was just so lucky to be part of that.
Well, and the difference with other school projects, most of the time with other school projects, it's one band, usually a big band, and the director basically lays it out, okay, we're going to do these tunes, you're going to solo on this, you're going to solo on that, and that's what happens. And very rarely will they feature original compositions by music students in the program, and that's the whole point of it, is to document people's writing, as well as their playing.
I have one funny memory from that. So we played a composition by Julie Spencer, who was a virtuoso percussionist, mallet player, and she composed a piece called Black Box Blues. And she told me, she said, "Okay, I want you to take a trumpet solo on this, and I want you to sound funny." So I played with like a bunch of vibrato, and says, "Yeah, that's it. And then it's interesting, later on, I realized, but there are some players that play like this, like in a really great way. It was just like super expressive. It's like, and it was interesting to have that experience, because then I listened and she's like, and then I was like, God, that actually does sound good. Why don't I sound funny more often, But I just realized that there are players that play with that level of expression. That are some of my favorite players. So anyway, that was an interesting experience, one of many during that process.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a really good one. Well, yeah, the program was smaller. It was actually the CD project at Capitol that was the beginning of making the program larger, because that's when the word got out, because we would go to the conferences and give them away, which was Joe Smith's idea. We still do it. And, but that's a big thing. And for most of our students that are involved in it, it's their first experience in a real studio. Yeah. I'm so amazed that we're still able to do this. Every year it's an adventure. So I'm really happy that you were able to come back for this week. We're going to do the way Ralph suggested we organize it was the first day yesterday. We focused on Ralph's compositions, which are amazing, and I've been listening for the last probably 5 or 6 weeks since we made plans almost every day to your music, and I've found it really inspiring. I've gotten into a writing groove as a result of it. And then today is Charlie Haden Day, where we'll do a whole bunch of Charlie's music. And then tomorrow you chose to focus on Ornette Coleman. Would you talk just a little bit about Ornette and what that means in the context of your music? Because, I mean, that's another thing. You don't find any schools focusing Ornette Coleman.
Right.
Kind of ever.
Definitely not. Definitely not. I don't know. It's almost transcends words, to talk about Ornette's music. But, I I mean, inspiration is a big part of this. So I'm always inspired by his music. And to me, you know, he personifies the one of the most important parts of being a jazz musician, which is to really have your own distinct way of doing it. I don't know. I just, after not understanding his music at all when I was first introduced to it here in 1984, eventually I got to this point where it's the thing that Charlie would talk about Ornette's music. You know, he would say like, God, what a sound, or like, you know, and he would react to it as we're listening to the music. And I think we were trying to experience it through Charlie, and we did up to a point, but I didn't fully get that then. And eventually I was hearing what Charlie was hearing, you know, and I still do. He's the one musician I regularly listen to. You know, there aren't many periods where I'll put him on the back burner. I hear everything in his playing. I hear you know, sound, melody, rhythm, creativity. Not to mention his compositions, which he's one of my favorite composers as well. The audacity in his music, the chances taken, it's in many ways it's kind of, he's condensed it down to all the elements of what makes this music what it is, and a musician that I want to keep studying. You know, there's something so deep to his music. It's so layered, and you know, just any sort of artist has those layers to their music, so you can keep going back and going back and going back, and there's just no musician that has ever walked the face of the earth that's anything like Ornette, you know. So I'm fully invested in studying his music, and that will continue.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful, Ralph. That's really great. Well, thank you so much for everything that you do, for your teaching, your playing, your recording, your performing, and for doing this week in this year's version of the Charlie Haden Artist in Residence.
Thank you, David. An honor. Thank you.